What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the next Josh Nader Plays video. So after having played through Dark Souls 2 for the first time, I have a lot of mixed feelings. But as usual, I'm going to start with a good old boss ranking video. Just a quick note that all of these opinions will be based off of my first playthrough, so if I play the game through again, which I'm not entirely sure I want to, there will definitely be some changes. I probably should say that I'm also going to try to move through this very quickly because there are 41 bosses and I don't want this video to have an extremely long run time. Number 41, Covetous Demon. This big fat blob may hit hard, but that doesn't excuse the fact that he rarely hits you, and even if he does, you have plenty of time to get away and heal and get right back in the action. I mean, there really isn't even much else to say. He's not very tanky, so he should go down in no time as long as you're not playing too passively. Number 40, Prowling Magus and Congregation. It's kind of pathetic that they even call this a boss fight. It's literally just a bunch of zombies, mages, and then Prowling Magus, who takes just about as much damage as any other common enemy in the game. All of this combined with the fact that none of their spells do much of any damage, and their melee is absolutely pathetic, adds up to a boring and all-around easy gank fight. Number 39, Dragonrider. This boss is absolutely hilarious. I find it funny how if you just walk around him in circles, half of his attacks look like they're not even pointed towards you. I seriously think if I had to pick one boss to do a no-hit run against, it would definitely be the Dragonrider. Even if you're getting greedy, there's plenty of time in between each attack to get some hits in and run away if you need to heal. In all honesty, I think only new players should have any trouble putting this piece of scrap metal down for good. Number 38, The Last Giant. Alright, let's get one thing straight. The only reason I died to this boss once was because he was the first one I ever fought in Dark Souls 2. And let's face it, those of you who've played Dark Souls 1 and 3 before you played this game, you know the controls are clunky as hell, and they take a while to get used to. If you're a Dark Souls vet, or you've even fought some giants in these games, you know the best strategy is to stand right by his ankles, clip at him, and dodge away when he stomps around. Not much else he can do when you're rolling between his legs. He can't really swing much, even if he severs his own arm just to get more range. Number 37, Royal Rat Vanguard. Welcome to yet another Dark Souls 2 boss that shouldn't really be a boss. So you walk into the arena and you basically have to fight a bunch of these stupid ass little enemy rats until the one with the mohawk drops down, and he's the one that actually takes damage. The rest of these are irrelevant, you just have to kill a set number of them in order for the actual boss to spawn. You see, they're very hard to distinguish, so the first time I came in here I had no idea I was supposed to do that, so I died pathetically trying to fight the millions of them as they kept spawning all around me. The best strategy to make this fight easy peasy is to use the statues so you don't get poisoned by the rats. Keep killing them until the mohawk one spawns in, and then just go ham on him and he'll be dead in no time. Number 36, Demon of Song. Not exactly sure where this guy gets his name, because he's basically a giant skull frog with a foreskin that he pulls over his face to add protection, no pun intended. Despite how intimidating he may look, he's actually quite easy. All you have to do is go up and bait his attacks. Once he brings his arms out, you want to back away and give him a chance to swing once or twice. Once you know he's finished with his combo, jump in and beat him to death. Number 35, Old Iron King. Here's another boss that looks really intimidating but is actually not that difficult at all. Now, when I got to this point, I had a lot of souls for my level, so I actually summoned an NPC who just fired arrows at him through the whole fight. But honestly, I would argue that NPCs make this fight harder, since they really don't do a whole lot of damage to him, and he can't even really swing at the archer from where he was standing. That being said, it's not like I really needed the help. This guy has the most telegraphed attacks I have ever seen. The only real danger is being swept off the area into the lava. That will result in instant death. Otherwise, this guy should be easy peasy. Number 34, Giant Lord. I honestly think the regular memory giants are much more of a threat than this guy ever can be. He's pretty much the exact same thing as the last giant, except he has a sword, so he has a few swings. That doesn't really matter because you can always just roll through his legs and he won't be able to hit you if you're behind him, so keep chopping at the ankles like they always say to do for giant bosses. One thing I will say is make sure you keep him in this little corner that he starts out in. If you lead him out to where the fireballs can hit you, you can be left real vulnerable for some sword swings. Number 33, Old Dragon Slayer. Our good old pal Ornstein may be tough with his friend Smo and Tail, but without him, this guy's a real pushover, not gonna lie. A lot of the time I wasn't even properly dodging his attacks, I was simply holding my shield out and it was enough to keep his attacks at bay while I chop him into little bits. Although I must say the fight was very nostalgic and fun, I can't exactly say the same for the difficulty. Rest easy, Dragon Slayer. Number 32, Skeleton Lords. Oh my god, not another gank boss. Actually, don't worry, this one isn't terrible. It did give me a little bit of needle flashbacks when I killed a Skeleton Lord and a bunch of skeletons spawned in his place, but they're really not that aggressive for some reason. Just make sure when you do take out the Skeleton Lord that spawns the wheel ones that you kill those right away, because they will be an extreme nuisance while you kill the other two. Other than that, the Lords themselves don't have a whole lot of health, plus they're very slow and don't hit very hard, so this shouldn't be too bad of a fight no matter what playstyle you use. Number 31, Guardian Dragon. Yes, this is another boss that can be very intimidating when you first walk into the arena, but once you know how to deal with this beast, you'll have no problem killing it. The basic strategy is to run to the sides of the area whenever he goes into the air to do his fire breath. Once he lands, it's all about staying behind him, chopping at his legs, and dodging when he stomps or swings his tail. In the grand scheme of things, this is much easier than a lot of the dragon fights that the Souls series has offered us, such as Calamite, Midir, and you see where I'm getting at. Number 30, Flexile Sentry. This is a really cool concept for a boss. I didn't think the atmosphere was that intoxicating, especially since there's no theme in the background, but I can excuse that for how cool of a boss this is to be fighting this early in the game. As for the difficulty of the fight, it really depends on which side of him you get aggroed on you. If you get the guy with the maces, you're golden. If you go for the swords, you're going to have a little bit of a more rough time. The guy with the maces is much slower, so you really want to keep him on you. You also want to make sure you stay fairly aggressive in this fight, because the water does rise if you wait too long, and eventually you'll be slow rolling. Just keep your damage output up and you'll be captain of this ship in no time. Number 29, Executioner's Chariot. I know a lot of people don't like this fight, but I actually respect that it tried to be something different. The main idea of the first phase is you have to run around and stick to the pockets whenever the chariot runs through, otherwise it'll run you right over, along with all the skeletons in the area. Make sure you kill the mages though, otherwise the skeletons will be brought right back to life. If you keep your speed up, eventually you'll reach a lever. Once you pull this lever, it'll bring down a gate. When the chariot tries to pass through, it'll crash and you'll only have to kill the horse. From here, treat it like your typical beast enemy. Try and stay behind and get some hits out in the back legs. Do watch out though, because that back kick has some really weird hitboxes, and I've had plenty of close calls in my first run. Number 28, the Pursuer. This ominous knight marks the point in the game where, I guess you could say, the true Dark Souls 2 starts here. And he's still one of the first bosses you face in the game. So this is the fight that really forced me to start to learn the controls of Dark Souls 2, because they do feel a lot different than the other two games. After all the experience I gained through the rest of Dark Souls 2, I feel like I could take the Pursuer on easily now. But I remember back when I first started the game and I thought he was really difficult to kill. Number 27, Ancient Dragon. I can see why a lot of people hate this fight. He's very tanky, can two-shot almost any vigor level, and you spend the majority of the fight running around the map just to avoid his fire attacks, which is kind of aggravating. That's how I know I'm in the minority here when I say that I actually really like this fight. He's so big, and just the spectacle of fighting such an enormous beast is so cool. There's actually a pretty straightforward strategy to beating this boss. You really just have to walk to the edge of the map whenever he sprays fire from the sky, and when he lands, clip at his ankles. Sometimes you do have to stand in front of him for a little bit first to bait a fire attack on the land, otherwise he'll just fly back into the air. Just don't be greedy and maybe you'll have this dragon dead eventually. Number 26, King Vendrick. Vendrick is very blind, so the main strategy here is to just stay behind him. As long as you're standing there, there's virtually nothing he can do, so the basic strategy is to hit him a few times, make sure you can stay behind him while he's moving around, and as he's swinging, just beat the living shit out of his legs. All of that said, Vendrick does hit very hard, so one mistake can cost you your life. I also think it's important to mention that, for this fight, having 5 giant souls can really save you a lot of pain. Basically, Vendrick doubles his defense for each giant soul you don't have, so having them can definitely make this fight go a lot faster. Number 25, the Rotten. This disgusting blob of bodies basically just floats around and has a cleaver, and yeah, it's a pretty straightforward fight. The 2 main attacks that he uses is a 3 combo where he slashes at you with his cleaver. It's fairly easy to dodge, but if you do get hit by it, it does a lot of damage. The other one is where he belches some sort of substance. I'm not sure if it's poison or toxin or if it can petrify you. I've never been hit by it, but it looks pretty nasty, so I would try to avoid it. Also, try to avoid stepping on the burning coal all around the map, because that can kill you very quickly as well. Number 24, Nashandra. I'm not going to go as far as to say Nashandra is an easy boss per se, but she certainly is for a final boss. Yeah, so after I beat Throne Watcher and Defender, I had 2 Estus left, and I walked right into this fight thinking, oh shit, I am fucked because I have nothing to heal with. But you know what? I soon found out that if I was cautious enough, I wouldn't really need them. So the first thing you want to do when you walk into the arena is slowly take out these curse orbs, otherwise they'll keep cursing you whenever you walk close to them while you're trying to fight Nashandra. Her melee attacks are nothing special and they don't hit very hard. Her dark laser that she just did, that can hit you a bit harder, so you want to watch out for that, but it's really nothing difficult to avoid. Number 23, Royal Rat Authority. Man, what is with Dark Souls 2 and these annoying rat bosses? So the first thing you want to do when you get into this arena is kill these little rats as quickly as possible. You're likely going to get toxic because they hit constantly, and there's 4 of them. But once you take them out, the giant rat will jump in and you're going to have to fight him. And you do not want to be worrying about these little rats while you're trying to fight him. Basically how easy this fight is for you depends on one thing. Can you kill the little rats before the big one joins the fight? Because once you take them out, this guy's actually quite a pushover. All you really have to do is roll underneath him where 95% of his attacks won't hit you and just slash away at his legs. Number 22, Velstadt. This boss is very tanky and he hits pretty hard with some of his attacks. The thing is, he's pretty slow and it's fairly easy to get behind him. Although I think it kind of is a cool fight, there's really not that much else to say about it. Partway through the fight he does gain the ability to buff himself, and once he does, he gets faster and his attacks are a little bit more strong, but that doesn't really change the strategy when it comes to beating him. If you're struggling, the best advice I can give is just to memorize his moveset and time your rolls right. If you become a pro at that, this boss will actually be pretty easy for you. Number 21, Mytha, the Bangful Queen. So I actually only have footage of my first attempt on this boss, in which case I didn't know that if you light the torch outside of the arena, all the poison will be gone. You're going to want to do this, because if not, you're going to be getting poisoned constantly, and that makes this fight 100 times harder, especially when she can heal with the poison. Second time around, I came in with not much more experience than I did in the first try, but I still thought it was not too bad. She has some melee moves with her spear, and she can shoot spells at you, and her tail can hit you pretty devastatingly, but other than that, I didn't think the fight was that hard all around. Number 20, Scorpioness Najka. This boss is basically Quay-like 2.0. The only thing that really makes her difficult is that she has a lot of moves to choose from when she's going after you. First, there's the basic swings of her spear, which don't do a whole lot of damage. She can also swing her tail around and whack you with it. Doesn't hurt too much. You got plenty of time to heal and get attacks in when she's doing that stuff. And then there's the stingers. While you can cut them off, those attacks do leave her open for counters. The problem is, if you do happen to get hit by the stingers, you get toxic. And I don't have footage of it, but the first attempt of this fight, I got toxic almost 4 times, I think. Aside from that headache, she can shoot some magic spells that don't really hurt a whole lot and are pretty easy to avoid. She can also dig underground and try to jump up right underneath you, but there's a little platform you can stand on in the area, makes it super easy to just avoid that altogether and even get some healing time in. Number 19, Dragonriders. I think it's safe to say that we're getting into the moderately difficult category of bosses now, because a lot of these guys gave me quite a bit of trouble. While the 2 Dragon Fighters wasn't one of those fights, I think I got pretty lucky coming out on my first try. When the fight starts, your goal is to get as much damage in on this first Dragon Rider as you can, while the second one is shooting arrows at you from above. Because if he gets knocked down or he jumps down, you're going to have a real headache trying to deal with both of them at once. Seriously, just look how close I came to dying here. But yeah, once you get down to one Dragonrider, it's pretty much the same as the other fight at the very beginning of the game, which was one of the easiest fights in the game in my opinion. Number 18, Aldia, Scholar of the First Sin. Now I know once again I'm probably in the minority saying that I like this boss, but I like this boss. I think it's a fitting conclusion to the DLC, and at least poses a moderate challenge. The main gimmick to this fight is that you don't want to be attacking Aldia when he's got the fire around him. This can kill you very quickly and actually resulted in my death the first time because I got hit by an attack right after I rolled out of the fire. The deadliest attack that Aldia has is probably the flame orb that just flew right by me. Other than that, you pretty much have to watch out for the arms that come out of the ground and watch when Aldia teleports, run over to him, get a few hits in before he comes back on fire. Even if you do get hit by a really strong attack, you'll almost always have time to heal before Aldia attacks you again. Number 17, the Duke's Dear Freja. This boss is such a fucking nightmare to get to that I actually tried summoning on my second attempt. Emphasis on tried. I mostly wanted their help killing the small spider minions that spawn throughout the fight, because they clearly don't do shit against the Freja because NPCs aren't smart enough to go for the head. And yeah, that's the only place that this giant bitch of a spider will take damage. I'm sorry to admit it, I hate this fight. The Big Mama's huge and takes up at least a quarter of the map, so it's impossible to get away to heal for 2 fucking seconds, which is swinging her legs around. And then there's the buttfuckery of all the little spiders running around. So yeah, if you enjoyed this boss fight, I have a special kind of admiration for you. Number 16, the Lost Sinner. So yeah, this footage is the only footage I have of this fight, and it's from my noobish first attempt where I didn't even bother to light up the arena, which makes the lock-on distance a lot longer, and would have definitely saved me a lot of trouble as the Sinner jumped around. For the point in the game that you fight her in, the Sinner does a lot of damage, and I had a lot of trouble dodging her thrust attacks. And I know I just said a lot of times, but this boss just deserves a lot of emphasis. Number 15, Belfry Gargoyles. Ho, if you like gang fights, you're gonna love this one. Try taking on not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 gargoyles, and all at the same time, unless your DPS is like unbelievably insane. I feel like this fight is very luck-based, so my best recommendation is you can choose one of 2 strategies. The first strategy is to just bring a shit ton of life gems with you and just go ham. Don't even worry about dodging, just kill the first couple gargoyles as fast as you can. The other strategy is just to run around and wait for an opening, which is really hard to do, but can be pulled off. Number 14, Elana, the Squalid Queen. This boss wasn't so hard for me until she decided to spawn a Velstadt clone. At first I thought, well okay, whatever, Velstadt isn't that hard, I'll just kill him while dodging her orbs and then kill her afterwards. After trying this strategy though, I came to the unfortunate realization that she will just spawn him again, like literally almost immediately after I kill him. From that point on, I decided to just lure Velstadt away, go into Elana and give a few hits on her, and then run away again. Yeah, I used up all my Estus pretty quickly and ended up using quite a few life gems as well, but it paid off because I was able to do this fight in the first try. Even despite the fucking skeleton mob she decided to spawn at the very end, because she's so shit easy to kill by herself. Number 13, Ruined Sentinels. If I had to pick the one fight in this game that frustrated me the most, it would easily be Ruined Sentinels. So at the beginning of the fight you drop down onto this platform and there's only one sentinel, the others don't even notice you if you stay there. So the best strategy is to take him out and hopefully he doesn't fall off the platform because that did happen to me a lot. Once you kill the first one and you drop down to kill the other 2, that's when things get really annoying. When the 2 sentinels are both attacking you at the same time, it's really difficult to dodge things correctly, and also to get them to attack in a manner where you have times to get attacks in. I used a bonfire aesthetic to actually get footage of this fight way later in the game, so it was definitely not too bad then, but when you're at a low vigor level and you have very limited number of Estus, this can be a tough-ass fight. Number 12, the Looking Glass Knight. This is yet another boss that just pissed me the hell off. I think this boss pissed me off for a combination of reasons, because his design is actually pretty cool and I really like the environment. Just seeing the lightning and the rain gives this fight a really cool background to fight in. Everything else just absolutely sucks. His hitboxes, for one thing, feel like garbage. If you so much as accidentally hit his shield, you'll bounce right off of it and do 0 damage to him. And lastly, he summons a fucking NPC, and actually tried to summon a second one before I could kill him in the second attempt. Oh well, at least he didn't summon any online players. Number 11, Sinh, the Slumbering Dragon. When I first walked into this boss arena, I kinda panicked because I didn't realize I'd be fighting Sinh so early on in the DLC. I kinda just ran up to him, started attacking, and just dodged when it felt natural, and honestly, I didn't have that much trouble with the fight, even with all of that considered. One thing I will say is that his aerial attacks are much more difficult to deal with. If you can keep him on the ground, that is certainly a plus. You also want to avoid the toxic clouds of gas that he leaves behind after a fire attack, because I got toxified a few times, and trust me, that shit will drain your essence. When you're fighting Sinh on land, it felt a lot like a more watered down version of Calamite from the first Dark Souls game, so if you've played that fight, you'll have no problem with his ground moveset. Number 10, the Gank Squad. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much this boss fight's official name now, because that's what everybody calls it. I suppose that's better than saying Afflicted Grave Robber, Ancient Soldier Varg, and Sarah the Old Explorer. But yeah, this fight is a nightmare. It's bad boss design and nobody fucking likes it. First thing you want to do when you walk in is go straight for the guy with the bow. Yes, he's annoying as fuck and he will hit you with his melee weapon once you get close enough to him, but it's better than trying to do the melee guys first and getting struck with a bow and sent halfway flying across the map every time it happens. Once you get him dead, at least you don't have to worry about constantly moving to avoid a projectile. From here, I like to take on the guy with the katana first because he's faster and Havel will usually lag behind a little bit. If or when you get it down to Havel, simple, just block with a good shield and then backstab to death. Fuck this boss. Number 9, Throne Watcher and Defender. So I guess this is the game's way of trying to make a new Ornstein and Smough? Well, I wouldn't say this is necessarily a bad fight. It just had really nothing cool to it. It's just two guys with shields and swords and they swing at you and they slash at you and you have to roll around a lot and you have to wait for an opening to attack. It's just like any other gank fight you've had in the game. The catch is that you don't want to kill one of them with the other one having still a lot of health left, because if you do, the one that's still alive can go and revive the dead one, and then you'll have to fight the other one again. I never had that happen, but it looks like I killed him just in the nick of time there. Also, avoid falling off the map like I did. Number 8, Smelter Demon. Every Souls game has that one boss that's about halfway through the game, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but it's that one that really poses as a brick wall for about 90% of players. The Smelter Demon is that boss in this game. He has a lot of health. He can drain your health just by standing by him once he lights himself on fire. Smelter also has some nasty combos and AoEs that if you're caught up in, you can die very quickly. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of me getting absolutely wrecked by him because I only have like my 6th attempt where I actually beat him. Wait, actually, that might be a good thing. Number 7, Ava, the King's Pet. I guess I might have gotten a little caught up in the frustration when I was first fighting this boss, but looking back on it, I really think this is a cool one. First of all, an ice tiger in the middle of the frozen kingdom of Lois. It was just badass, if nothing else. All of that said, Ava was definitely a difficult fight, requiring precise timing in order to dodge her attacks properly. You also need to know how to deal with these orbs that she makes appear over her head. They soon turn into icicles that fly straight at you, and instead of dodging like I tried to do, you need to sprint. Other than that, she has a few basic lunge attacks and an AoE that is pretty easy to see coming. But all of this can get pretty difficult when she's really fast. Number 6, Sir Alonne. Now the run-up to this boss may be my least favorite in the entire game. Yes, it is that god-awful. But this has to be my favorite boss fight in the entire game. Everything is literally so perfect, from the music to the atmosphere, and even the knight himself as you fight him, and his tricky-to-dodge katana. His moveset reminds me a lot of the Lost Sinner, lots of thrust attacks, but he has a little gimmick to him. If he manages to land a certain thrust attack, he'll basically impale you, and it gives him a huge attack buff that makes him able to deal out insane amounts of damage. Thankfully the buff wears off, because if it doesn't, I would sure as hell rank this guy as the toughest boss in the game. He does have a few slash attacks that can be easily dodged by just rolling around him, but the thrust ones almost always got me until like my third or fourth attempt. I think they honestly nailed the difficulty and design of this boss perfectly. If all the Dark Souls 2 bosses were like this, the game might have been better as a whole. Number 5, Burnt Ivory King. I better be careful here because I know a lot of people like this boss, but I unfortunately wasn't feeling the same way. First of all, if you missed any of the Lois Knights that you are supposed to collect before you do this fight, you gotta make sure you have them, otherwise this is gonna be like twice the pain in the ass that it already is. If you don't, you'll have to kill even more of these asshole enemies that are absolutely obnoxious and deplete all of your healing stuff before you even have to fight the king. As for the king alone, he's actually not that bad until he buffs his sword. Once he does this, prepare for an ass whooping. Not only does his blade do seemingly twice his damage, but he's also very fast and unpredictable, and there were so many times when I backed up to heal thinking I had to save time to do so, and he would thrust forward and kill me instantly. That's easily the hardest part of this boss fight for me, is just finding time to heal without getting struck again by his giant magic piece of shit, blade. Burn in hell, Burnt Ivory King. Number 4, Darklurker. When I first walked in to fight this secret boss, I was like, okay, he's not really that bad, and then what the fuck, he splits into two. Okay, let's start with phase 1 here. So during phase 1, it's basically a DPS test, because I'm pretty sure when he splits in two is based off a timer, not how much damage you deal. This is easier said than done though, because you don't want to get hit by his sword swings, they do a shit ton of damage. You also want to avoid his fire and magic orbs, because those can hurt a lot too, and they can home in on you. I don't even have footage of my actual win against this boss because I just thought there was no way I was going to beat it in that attempt. It was so weird because fighting 1 was so easy, but then fighting 2 made it infinitely more difficult because these guys have so many different moves and learning to dodge them simultaneously is near impossible. When judging the difficulty of Darklurker, I'd also like to take into account the fact that you have to spend a human effigy every time you want to come down here into the abyss to fight him. Because those are not easy to come by. Number 3, Lude and Zellen, the king's pets. I'd rather not say a whole lot about this boss other than 2 Avas, less health, more fucking damage. This fight is literally so trash I don't even have footage of it. It's such fucking garbage, it completely ruins the spectacle of what made Ava so amazing of a fight. The only reason this battle is so difficult is because there's 2 of them, and it doesn't help that they do about twice the fucking damage that Ava did when you first fought her. I'm sorry, I appreciate difficulty, I really do. But at this point in the game, I was really sick and tired of the gankage. And yes, I just used that word. Number 2, the Blue Smelter Demon. No, don't let this boss trick you into thinking he's just another watered down reskin. You make that assumption and you are straight up fucked. Yes, Blue Smelter Demon is very similar to Red Smelter Demon in many ways. But for every move that Red Smelter Demon has, the blue one has a varying version of it that has a completely different timing, and it fucks you every time. At least until you die a good 13 times like I did. Nothing's more obnoxious than perfectly dodging 2 attacks in a row, and then the third one in the combo is like, oh, I'm about to swing, you better roll. Oh, just kidding, I'm actually going to wait another millisecond just to fuck up your timing. I really don't want to hate on Blue Smelter Demon though, because a strange part of me actually enjoyed the challenge. I would fight 100 Smelter Demon reskins before I have to do another gank boss. I also would like to give a quick shout out to all the common enemies that you have to run past just to get to this fog wall. They easily killed me even more times than the Smelter Demon did himself. Oh well, this video is technically about the bosses themselves and not the run-ups, so I can't really count that into consideration when I'm ranking the difficulty. Well, it looks like we've reached number 1, which is the Fume Knight, as some of you may have guessed. Here's yet another boss that starts out fairly easy, you just have to strafe around his sides and swing at him from behind when he's done with his combos. A little less than halfway into the fight though, he'll buff his sword, gaining new moves and making his combos way more difficult to get out of. Fume Knight doesn't give a fuck what kind of resistances you have, he'll backhand your ass to the ground and burn you to the bone without hesitation. This fight is all about patience, practice, and making sure you use all 4 smelter wedges on the outside of the arena. If you don't, he'll fucking heal just about every 30 seconds, so good luck killing him with those. Much like Sir Alonne, Fume Knight is tough to learn. He's not tough because he's a gank or because he has some sort of bullshit move that cheats you every time. In a good Dark Souls boss, you have to know your enemy, and the Fume Knight is no exception. He is no doubt the best and the most difficult of Dark Souls 2, in my opinion. Well guys, I guess I better cut this video short before I hit the 30-minute mark. If you enjoyed, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment if you wish, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.